Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me?
Someone killed my parents.
What? Who? Were they shot?
Hey, man, dude.
Were they shot?
Yes.
The night before they killed their parents, the Menendez family went shark fishing. They chartered a boat from Marina del Rey and spent the day on the Pacific Ocean. By every account of the crew who were there, they were not much of a family out on that water. Jose stayed in the stern and fished by himself. Kitty went below because she was seasick. Lyle and Eric stayed at the bow, apart from their parents, talking to each other. When the boat came back to shore, the family drove home to their 9,000-square-foot mansion on Elm Drive in Beverly Hills, a house that had, at different points in its history, been rented by both Michael Jackson and Elton John, and went inside. 24 hours later, Jose and Kitty Menendez were dead. They had been watching television in the den. The Spy Who Loved Me was on the screen, when their sons walked in carrying Mossberg 12-gauge shotguns loaded with birdshot and buckshot. They fired. And fired. And fired again. 15 rounds in total. Jose was shot in the back of the head. Kitty, who did not die immediately, tried to run. She was shot multiple times trying to escape. Both parents were also shot in the kneecap, a detail that told the medical examiner the shooters had stood over them and fired downward at close range when they were already on the ground. The coroner described Jose's head wound as a gaping laceration 5 inches by 4 inches.
Beverly Hills emergency.
Yes, police.
What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem?
Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me?
Someone killed my parents.
What? Who? Are they still there?
Yes.
The people...
No.
Were they shot?
Hey, man, dude.
Were they shot?
Yes.
They were shot?
Yes.
102, 102 response, 722 North Elmore.
What happened? Hey, stand up,
I have a hysterical person on. We're trying to get things further. Other units responding. Is the person still there?
What happened? We have units around. What happened? Who shot who? I don't hear anything. I came home. You came home and found who shot? Mom and Dad.
You know if they're still in the house, the people that did the shooting.
Get away from him. Okay, hang on. Let me talk to Eric. Who is the person that was shot? My mom and my dad. Your mom and dad? My mom and my dad. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, we're on our way over there with the ambulance. Okay, I gotta go. Okay. Hello, this is police department. Yes. Okay, I want you to come outside. Okay, just come out the front door and my brother.
Large enough, he noted, for an adult to thrust their fist through. When Beverly Hills police arrived at 11:47 p.m., responding to a 911 call from Lyle Menendez, who was crying and screaming, "They shot and killed my parents," they found a crime scene so brutal that the lead detective's first instinct was organized crime. No forced entry. No robbery. 15 shotgun blasts. It looked, the detective later said, like a professional hit. He focused his investigation on Jose's business enemies. He did not administer gunshot residue tests to the brothers. He did not consider them suspects. That was a mistake he would eventually recognize. Jose Menendez was 45 years old when he died. He was a Cuban immigrant who had come to the United States with nothing and built himself into one of the most powerful music industry executives in the country. He had worked at Hertz Corporation, then RCA Records, then became CEO of Live Entertainment, a film studio and home video distributor in Los Angeles. He was driven, relentless, and by almost every account of those who worked with him, brutal in his professional manner. He was also, his sons would eventually claim, brutal in an entirely different way at home. Kitty Menendez was 47. She had been an athlete and beauty queen in her youth. She had won the Miss Dutchess County pageant in New York in the 1960s. She had given up her own ambitions to raise their sons and support Jose's career.
We were ordering the occupants out of the house, which was Lyle and Eric, and they came running out of the house extremely despondent and carrying and crying and yelling and that kind of stuff. And Eric ran from the doorway across the driveway to this tree and started trying to bash his head against the tree, and he had to be physically restrained by the officer.
It's August 21st, 1989. We're at 722 North Elm Drive. Reported double homicide. Present at the scene are Detectives Zoller, myself, and Lenahan.
Police in Beverly Hills, California are investigating the shooting deaths of an entertainment company executive and his wife.
How many shots do you think went off?
About 6 in a row.
All morning, detectives and technicians from the crime lab continued to look for clues behind the huge oak doors and the ornate windows.
She was described by some who knew her as warm and loving. By others, including her own sons in court, as an alcoholic, emotionally unstable, and complicit in the darkness of the household. Lyle Menendez was 21 years old on the night of August 20, 1989. Eric was 18. They were, on paper, the products of everything the American upper class was supposed to produce: private schools, tennis rankings, college applications, the glossy surface of privilege. Lyle was described by those who knew him as confident, outgoing, sometimes arrogant. Eric was the more sensitive one, quieter, more anxious, an aspiring tennis player who had competed at the national junior level just 2 weeks before the murders. In the days and weeks that followed their parents' deaths, Lyle and Eric Menendez did not behave like grieving sons. They spent money. Enormous quantities of it, and fast. Within weeks of the murders, Lyle had bought a Porsche 911 Carrera. Eric hired a personal tennis coach. Together they spent money on restaurants, hotels, designer clothes, and Rolex watches, burning through hundreds of thousands of dollars from the estate with a speed that first puzzled and then alarmed the detectives assigned to the case. Lyle also, investigators later discovered, hired a computer expert to delete their father's recently updated will. He told the expert it was a business matter. In October 1989, just 2 months after the murders, Eric Menendez walked into the office of his therapist, a Beverly Hills psychologist named Jerome Oziel, and told him the truth. He and Lyle had killed their parents. He explained the motivation in terms that had nothing to do with abuse. He said they had killed Jose because he was too controlling and had planned to disinherit them, and Kitty because she was unhappy in her marriage and they felt she would be better off dead. Oziel recorded the sessions. He told his mistress, Judalon Smith,
I thought it was somewhere else, you know?
Why? What you think that?
Well, I didn't think it would be here, right where I come to work at.
After what happened here last night, some of the neighbors are worried and afraid.
It was or was not a hit, or it was a robbery, or it was something else. We're not sure, and we're not speculating at this time.
Lyle returned to the Princeton area and began a kind of spending frenzy. His friends say they thought it was his way of dealing with his grief. Over several weeks, he bought clothes, a Rolex, a $62,000 Porsche. Rather than return to school, he bought a restaurant, saying his mother would have been pleased. And for a while, Lyle hired these bodyguards, saying he feared for his own life because his father had a lot of business enemies.
And when Smith, furious after Oziel broke up with her, went to the police several months later and told them what she knew, the investigation suddenly had a completely different shape. On March 8, 1990, Lyle Menendez was arrested outside the Beverly Hills mansion where his parents had been murdered, walking toward his car on his way to lunch. Eric was in Israel competing in a tennis tournament. 2 days later, he flew home and surrendered at Los Angeles International Airport. Both brothers were charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances. They faced the death penalty. They pleaded not guilty. And then, 3 years later, in July 1993, their trial began. And the story they told, the story that had never been mentioned to police, to detectives, to anyone, changed everything. Jose Menendez, the brothers now claimed, had been sexually abusing Eric since he was a small child. The abuse was ongoing, they said, at the time of the murders. Lyle said he had been abused from age 6 to 8, then it had stopped. Eric said it had never stopped. 8 months before the murders, Eric had written a letter to his cousin Andy Cano describing the abuse. He had not mailed it. He had hidden it. That letter would not resurface until decades later. 2 weeks before the murders, Eric had finally told Lyle what was happening to him. Lyle confronted their father.
I would not want children that looked like Dr. Oziel. So, Dr. Oziel made tremendous effort to convince me that my mother was trying to kill me and poison me. He isolated me from every single person I knew.
All right, just wait for the next question.
I didn't please him, and if he didn't love me, then I was going to end up dead.
And why did you think you were going to end up dead?
Because he told me.
And did he say how you were going to end up dead?
Yes, he said that he would call Lyle and Eric and tell them that I had been outside the door and that I knew and that I was wanting to go to the police and that they would kill me.
Jose, they testified, had threatened to kill both of them rather than allow the secret to come out. They believed him. They bought shotguns 2 days before the murders, using a stolen driver's license to avoid a paper trail, because they believed their father intended to kill them first. They did not call police. They did not leave the house. They went into the den and they fired. Their attorneys argued imperfect self-defense. A California legal doctrine that says a person who kills under an honest but unreasonable belief that their life was in danger is guilty of manslaughter, not murder. The trial was televised live, gavel to gavel, on the fledgling court TV network. Millions of Americans watched Eric Menendez, then 22 years old, take the stand and describe in graphic, specific, anatomical detail what he claimed his father had done to him. He wept. He shook.
He sat on the bench, and for a significant period of time, Eric told me things about his father and how his father was a great man and how he intended to write a book about his father. And we headed back to the office, and right before we entered the front door of the office building in which I had my office, he leaned back against, as I recall, a parking meter that was in front of the office door and said, "We did it." And I don't know if he said we killed our parents, but I asked him, you mean you killed your parents? He said yes. And from that point, we went back up into the office.
He described the first time it happened, how old he was, what was said, what was done. The testimony lasted days. The country was riveted and divided, those who believed him, and those who were convinced he was lying to save himself from a death sentence. The prosecution's argument was equally direct. The brothers had killed their parents for money. Jose's estate was worth $14 million. The brothers had committed the murders 2 days after attempting, and failing, due to ID problems, to buy handguns. They had purchased the shotguns instead, using a fake ID. They had collected the shell casings afterward so their fingerprints wouldn't be found. They had driven up Mulholland Drive and thrown the guns into a canyon. They had gone home. They had called 911 and claimed to have found their parents dead. All of this, the prosecution argued, was not the behavior of terrified young men acting in panic. It was a plan, executed coldly. Both juries deadlocked.
It was a big thing holding us back from killing my father, is that we thought that we would just kill Dad and eliminate the problem. And see, the first step, which is when I found out the first suicide note, and then it got worse and worse, but I found the suicide note and I started crying. I could not read it from below the phone, I just started crying. She had made a decision that she couldn't take it anymore, and that Dad didn't love her anymore. And that's the affair? I believe it was after she found out about one of the affairs, like the main affair, that it had been 8 years long or whatever, or maybe after she found out there had been more than one. I walked in the room when she was crying, or when I did, frequently, she would stop crying, I want to talk about and putting her out of her misery, really. Didn't want to get to a point where my mother killed herself and my father, we were left to deal with my father. We had to come, like I was saying before, we had to make a decision. It was one of the harder ones, and it was a separate issue. Hey, these are the reasons my father should be killed. There's no question what he's doing is impossible to live with myself and for myself based on what he's doing to my mother.
Did Eric Menendez describe for you in particular what it was that he was upset with his father about?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
Well, basically that the father had just been completely dominating and controlling, was impossible to please, had perfectionistic standards, that he was controlling of a lot of different aspects of Eric and Lyle's life in a very extreme way, and also that he had been very controlling and very damaging to their mother, and that she also was miserable. So basically, they conceptualized the father. Eric told me that they saw the father as someone who was pretty much not possible to live with. That he was just an emotionally dominating, tyrannical person.
Mistrials were declared for both brothers. It was, at the time, one of the most stunning outcomes in recent American legal history. The second trial, in 1995, was deliberately less publicized. The judge, having seen what televised proceedings had done to the first trial, restricted cameras. And crucially, he also restricted much of the sex abuse evidence, limiting what the defense could present to the jury about the alleged molestation. Without that testimony dominating the proceedings, the dynamic shifted dramatically. On March 20, 1996, Lyle and Eric Menendez were convicted of first-degree murder. On April 17, 1996, they were sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms in prison without the possibility of parole. Lyle was 28. Eric was 25. They would never breathe free air again. They were separated and sent to different prisons. Eric, eventually, married a woman named Tammy. A pen-pal relationship that developed into a prison ceremony in 1999, and a marriage that has lasted to this day, with Tammy becoming one of the brothers' most visible and vocal public advocates. Lyle also married, and later divorced. Both brothers threw themselves into prison programming. Eric founded at least 5 programs inside the California prison system, including a support group for disabled and elderly inmates. Lyle completed a college degree. Prison staff wrote letters on their behalf describing them, over decades, as model inmates who had transformed themselves and helped others. And America mostly forgot about them. Until TikTok remembered. Beginning around 2021 and accelerating sharply in 2023, a new generation of true crime consumers, many of them born after the murders, many of them encountering the case for the first time through social media, began re-examining the Menendez case with fresh eyes.
What do you believe was the originating cause of you and your brother shooting your parents?
Me telling.
You telling Lyle what? Was it you telling Lyle about something that was happening?
My dad. My dad. If you don't ask. My dad had been molesting me.
And did you want something from your brother? Is that why you told him?
I wanted to stop him.
Were you seeking help from your brother?
Yes. I told him that it was basically oral sex that was happening.
Okay. And did you tell him anything about any kind of violence that would accompany it, or any kind of threats from your father?
Yes.
And what did you tell him about violence?
I told him that there were pins and tacks that Dad would sicken me and use.
Pins
Could
and
you speak
tacks?
up, please? That Dad would stick in me and use.
Pins and tacks?
Yes.
And did you give him the impression that these pins and tacks were being used during oral sex?
Yes.
And in fact, was that something that did happen between yourself and your father when you were a teen?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you tell him about any weapons that your father ever threatened you with?
I told him that he threatened me with a knife.
Now, Mr. Menendez, do you remember the kind of knife that your father threatened you with?
Yes.
What kind was it?
It was a jagged knife.
A what?
A jagged knife on one end. It was a Rambo knife.
A Rambo knife?
Yeah, a knife that he had.
They focused on the abuse allegations. They focused on what we now know about childhood sexual trauma, about PTSD, about the ways victims behave that don't match what juries in 1996 expected victims to look like. They made videos. Millions of views. Then tens of millions. And then, in May 2023, a former member of the Puerto Rican boy band Menudo, a man named Roy Rossello, went public with a sworn statement that Jose Menendez had raped him when he was 14 years old, in the mid-1980s, when Jose was an executive at RCA Records and Menudo was one of his label's acts. It was, suddenly, corroboration of a kind that had never existed before, an entirely independent person, with no connection to the brothers or their case, describing Jose Menendez as a sexual predator of children. A letter Eric had written to his cousin Andy Cano in 1988. 8 months before the murders, describing the ongoing abuse, was also newly surfaced by the brothers' attorneys. The cousin had testified at trial. The letter itself, which would have corroborated his testimony, had never been presented to jurors. In September 2024, Ryan Murphy's Netflix series Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story premiered. It was immediately controversial.
This is a proof sheet of the sequence of the photographs from Eric's 6th birthday party. These photographs were found in this envelope. This envelope has the handwriting of his mother, Mary Louise Menendez. This is the one of Lyle's nakedness, which was saved by his mother.
He would take photographs of us, our private parts.
And would he have you come in and pose for these photographs, or how would that happen?
I would just, if we were in the showers or bathtub or changing, he would just use the same camera that my mother used, and then he would come in and take just a photograph or two, and he wouldn't say anything, and then he would leave.
The prosecution's theory is that the boys, the children, took the naked pictures.
Lyle then testified about the nature of the abuse itself.
After sports practices, he would massage me, and we would have these talks, and he would show me, and he would fondle me, and he would ask me to do the same with him, and I would touch him, and we would undress.
Where would this take place?
In my bedroom, like 2 or 3 times a week. We would be in the bathroom, and he would put me on my knees, and he would guide me, all my movements. He used objects.
What kind of objects?
A toothbrush and some sort of shaving utensil brush.
And what would he do with the toothbrush?
Well, in the bedroom, we'd have what we called object sessions. He'd have a tube of Vaseline, and he just played with me.
Did you tell your mom?
Yes.
What did you say to your mom?
I told her to tell Dad to leave me alone. And he keeps touching me. She told me to stop it, and that I was exaggerating, and that my dad has to punish me when I do things wrong. And she told me that he loved me.
Did you tell your brother? Did you do something to your brother?
Yes.
What did you do to your brother?
I took him out to the woods whenever I felt, I don't know, I took him out sometimes, and I took a toothbrush also, and I played with Eric in the same way. And I'm sorry.
When you were about 13, did you think that it might be happening to someone else?
Yes.
And who did you think it was happening to?
Eric.
And did you do something about it?
Yes.
What did you do?
I talked to my dad.
What did you say to your dad?
I told him that I knew what was going on with him and Eric, and I heard noises, and that I wanted him to leave Eric alone.
Murphy depicted the brothers in a far more morally ambiguous light than their supporters wanted, and Eric Menendez, writing from prison, publicly criticized the series as inaccurate and harmful. Murphy responded that the show was the best thing that had happened to the brothers in 30 years. The argument played out in the press while the series sat at the top of Netflix's charts. Kim Kardashian visited the brothers in prison with Cooper Koch, the actor who played Eric in the series. She wrote an op-ed calling for their release. Rosie O'Donnell spoke out. Rallies were organized outside courthouses. In October 2024, outgoing Los Angeles District Attorney George Gascon announced he was recommending resentencing, that the brothers should be given sentences of 50 years to life rather than life without parole, which, because they had committed their crimes under the age of 26, would make them immediately eligible for parole. His successor, Nathan Hochman, who won the DA election in November 2024, opposed the resentencing. He called the brothers' abuse claims a litany of lies. He filed motions to block it. The judge denied his motions. The resentencing hearing was delayed by the Los Angeles wildfires in January 2025. It was rescheduled for March 20th and 21st, 2025. And then, on May 13th, 2025.
You just learned that your brother had basically threatened to tell on your father.
Yes.
If the two of you disappeared that night, did you have in mind anything that your father might think about that?
Well, I thought Dad was going to kill us, and no matter where we went, anywhere, he was going to kill us. Obviously, my dad thought that Lyle and I were going to go tell somebody.
So if you left the house that night, what do you think your dad would have thought?
That we were going to tell.
That you had gone to tell?
I don't know if we had gone to tell that instant, but that we were definitely going to tell.
So where did the conversation with your brother Lyle lead to Thursday night?
It led to us having to buy guns. Led to Lyle saying, we got to protect ourselves. We got to do something. Because I kept eliminating all of his options.
Okay, he was coming up with options.
Yeah, I was pretty much just crying and doing whatever I was doing. He was saying, well, what if we could do this? Well, what if we do that? He said, calm down, we'll work it out. And I was just not being very helpful.
Did you think any of the options would work?
No.
So a decision was made to try to protect yourselves yourself. Is that it? And you were talking about the fact that Dad would kill you, is that right?
Yes.
Did you think your mother would stop him?
Oh, I thought my mom would do it with him. There wasn't no one and the other.
Why did you think your mother would do it with him?
Because that's who my mom was. very much of a team. Besides the fact that my mom hated us, they were a team.
Were you so sure that your mother hated you before Thursday night as you were after?
After, I definitely knew. I mean, for her to have known all those years, I knew she must have hated me, but I thought it before as well.
In a ruling that came far sooner than anyone expected, on the first day of what had been scheduled as a 2-day hearing, Judge Michael Jezik resentenced Lyle and Eric Menendez to 50 years to life in prison. They were immediately eligible for parole. Both brothers appeared via video from prison. Both spoke directly to the judge. "I killed my mom and dad," Lyle said. "I give no excuses." He admitted he had committed perjury at his first trial, that he had lied under oath in the 1990s. "Had I trusted others to help me, I wouldn't have committed these crimes," he said. Eric said, "I committed an atrocious act. My actions were criminal, selfish, and cowardly. There is no excuse." He said he would never stop trying to make a difference, whether I am inside or outside of prison. Judge Jezik said the crime had been horrific. He said he was also shocked by the letters from prison staff and corrections officers describing what the brothers had accomplished behind bars.
Mr. Anderson, during the period of time that you were at these houses, you never saw any sexual abuse, did you?
We were not allowed in the room.
You saw no sexual abuse, is that correct?
If you don't want to consider the showers that they took together after they were playing tennis, I found kind of strange.
And was there a time when in cleaning the room you found something unusual?
I found a Tupperware container under the bed.
And what was in the Tupperware container?
Feces remnants. No, I'm not an expert on feces, but no, it was not animal feces, no.
Lyle came down and he was asking if he could, I thought he was there to say goodnight. And he started asking me if he could sleep down there because Kathy had already gone and there was 2 single beds.
Okay.
He proceeded to indicate to me by touching himself down and saying that his dad and him had been touching each other down there.
Because there are just too many factors that point to disorganization.
And the main factors then are the noise of the weapon and the wounds.
The choice of the weapon, the location, and the noise level, injuries and location of wounds, yes.
One of the other factors that you consider in evaluating a crime scene is where the injuries are located on the victims, correct?
That's correct.
And we spoke about that this morning, but I wanted to ask you, isn't it true that in certain kinds of cases there will be injuries to the sexual organs of the victims?
That's correct.
And that indicates what generally?
It may indicate a sexual motive for the killing.
So I searched the complete hard disk everywhere and found that those files, the words, existed no place else on the hard disk except as those 3 file names containing essentially meaningless information. And I told Lyle this, that unfortunately I had failed and was unable to recover any useful or meaningful data for him.
What did he reply to you after you told him that?
What he told me is that was very good, because in fact he didn't want to recover the information. He wanted to make sure that the information was not in fact there and couldn't be recovered even by someone who was actively trying to recover the information.
He said he was not suggesting they should be released. But, one day they should get that chance. Their cousin Anna Maria Baralt stood outside the courthouse afterward, crying. "I am so happy that I wore waterproof mascara," she told reporters. "I've been crying all day long." The parole hearing was scheduled for August 21st and 22nd, 2025, at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego, where both brothers were housed. The California Board of Parole Hearings had already completed a risk assessment, conducted as part of a separate clemency path requested by Governor Gavin Newsom, which concluded that both brothers posed a moderate risk to the community if released. The assessment noted that both brothers had committed cell phone violations while in prison, Lyle in November 2024, Eric in January 2025. Lyle had been conducting conversations with his attorney's paralegal, Anna Maria Baralt, on an illegal burner phone. At their parole hearings in August 2025, Lyle and Eric Menendez were denied release. The parole board cited the risk assessments. It cited the cell phone violations. Using contraband devices in prison is a serious infraction, and the board took it seriously. It cited the need for more time to assess their readiness for life outside. Their attorneys announced they would appeal.
We've obtained tapes that suggest Lyle's buddy had the inside story. But in testimony today, he somehow forgot all of what he knew.
Prime 9 News brought you the exclusive story last night, and within a matter of hours, the report became part of the trial. Our story last night brought the Menendez brothers' murder trial to a temporary halt.
That's right. The jury was sent from the courtroom today so the judge and attorneys could talk about an audio tape we obtained and aired last night right here. The tape was an author's interview with Lyle Menendez's best friend. Now, in that 1992 interview, Donovan Goodrow said Lyle had told him there was sexual abuse in the Menendez family. That appears to contradict Goodrow's courtroom testimony yesterday. Today, he watched the Prime 9 News report played in court.
Told me about his father.
Basically, he said that his father had been abusing Eric.
Yeah, him and Eric. And
Lyle also.
Yeah, and would take baths with him and stuff like that. Oh man, you're at this.
So you still have no memory of that conversation with Mr. Rand?
No, I don't.
Are you saying that that conversation never took place?
No, it obviously took place. I just don't remember the conversation.
Do you recognize your voice?
Yes, I do.
That is your voice?
Yes, it is.
The apparent contradiction is crucial because the Menendez brothers are claiming self-defense in the murder of their millionaire parents based on allegations of abuse.
Tonight, with the Eric Menendez jury deadlocked, a mistrial has been declared in his case.
In Los Angeles today, a mistrial for Lyle Menendez.
This time, a Los Angeles jury went beyond the tearful testimony of brothers Lyle and Eric Menendez and found them guilty of the shotgun murders of their mother and father.
This shows that Andy wasn't making it up. It's contemporaneous evidence from Eric to his cousin Andy about what was happening.
Governor Newsom has not yet acted on the separate clemency petition. As of March 2026, Lyle and Eric Menendez, ages 58 and 55, remain in prison. Here's what this case ultimately asks. Not whether Jose Menendez abused his sons, that is a question that cannot be definitively answered, with Jose dead and the key evidence disputed. Not whether the brothers deserve sympathy, that is a matter of individual conscience. The question this case asks, and has been asking for 35 years, is: what is justice supposed to do with a crime that is real and undeniable, committed by people who may themselves have been victims of a crime that was equally real, equally undeniable, and for which no one was ever prosecuted? In 1996, the answer was life without parole. In 2025, a judge looked at two men in their 50s who had spent 35 years in prison, who had built rehabilitation programs for other inmates, who had admitted their crimes and admitted their lies, and said the answer should be different. The parole board said, not yet. Somewhere in a California prison, Lyle and Eric Menendez are waiting to find out if the answer ever changes. And 36 years after two shotguns were fired in a Beverly Hills den, America still cannot agree on what the right answer is. Maybe that's because the right answer, the one that accounts for everything, that does justice to Jose and Kitty Menendez and to their sons simultaneously, doesn't exist.
At times I wish I could talk to her about things, you know? Someday. Especially Dad and I, but the way she worships him and tells him everything, I'm so afraid she'll tell him whatever I say. I just can't risk it. Lyle got in a huge fight with her over why we couldn't spend Christmas with the rest of the family. And Mom freaked out and said if he wanted to go, he could go alone. I just don't know why she wants to hurt him like that. Lyle wanted to stay, but Dad wouldn't let him. So now I'm stuck here alone. I've been trying to avoid Dad. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He's so overweight that I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up, thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid you just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle. Am I a serious wimpus? I don't know, I'll make it through this. I can handle it, Andy. I need to stop thinking about it.
Eric and Lyle Menendez, the infamous brothers, the savagery of their crime, the murders of both their mother and father seem beyond comprehension. Tonight, for the very first time out of court, you will hear their story. Tonight, watching our interview, you can reach your own verdict about them. We begin with the crime itself. A hot August night in 1989, the Beverly Hills mansion of entertainment executive Jose Menendez. He and his wife Kitty are watching television in the family room. Suddenly, a brutal volley of shotgun fire. Jose Menendez is killed by a close-in shot to the head. He has 5 other shotgun wounds. Kitty Menendez's body is riddled with shotgun pellets.
She had 10 wounds on her. She was getting blasted all over that room.
Don't kill my parents. Pardon me? Don't kill my parents. Were they shot? Yes. They were shot? Yes.
The voice of Lyle Menendez, then 21 years old, who tells police that he and his brother Eric, then 18, discovered the bodies as they returned home from a movie. Lyle and Eric Menendez lied successfully for months. But if their crime was a horror movie, their undoing was the stuff of soap opera. Eric, in torment, confessed his crime to his therapist, Dr. Jerome Oziel. Lyle then also admitted to the murders. Their confession was overheard by Oziel's mistress, Judalon Smith, and she went to the police. Lyle was arrested in California. Eric, who had been traveling overseas, voluntarily flew home to surrender. 3 years later, the Menendez brothers went on trial for their lives.
I was just firing as I went into the room. I just started firing.
In what direction?
In front of me.
What was in front of you?
My parents.
And I remember firing directly at him.
You reloaded? Is that yes?
Yes.
And what did you do after you reloaded?
I ran around and shot my mom.
This is the woman who gave birth to them. This is what they did to their mother.
The jury heard tapes of the brothers' confession to Dr. Oziel.
There was no way I was going to make a decision to kill my mother without Eric's consent.
When their turn came, Eric and Lyle Menendez told a rapt courtroom that the murder of their parents was an act of self-defense. They said they were in fear of their lives from a controlling father who had been sexually abusing them.
He raped me.
Did you cry?
Yes.
Did you bleed?
Yes.
Were you scared?
Very.
Lyle said his abuse stopped when he was 8, but that he didn't know until just before the murders that Eric was being molested too.
What do you believe was the originating cause of you and your brother ultimately winding up shooting your parents?
Me telling.
You telling what?
Me telling Lyle that,
You telling Lyle what? Was it you telling Lyle about something that was happening?
my dad had been molesting me.
The brothers' testimony was compelling and effective. Relatives testified on their behalf about incidents in which their father treated the sons harshly, though none of them could actually confirm the allegations of sexual abuse. The jurors could not decide between verdicts of murder and manslaughter.
I find that the jury is hopelessly deadlocked, and the court declares a mistrial.
In August of 1995, now 6 years after their parents' murders, the Menendez brothers went on trial again. This time, there were no video cameras. Eric testified, but Lyle chose not to. Judge Stanley Weisberg again presided, but in a major blow for them, limited the brothers' claims to self-defense. There were far fewer grounds this time for a possible verdict of manslaughter. The jury deliberated for less than 4 days. The verdict? Lyle and Eric Menendez, both guilty of first-degree murder. The jury spent 3 more days deciding between life and death. The verdict here was life, in prison with no parole. The Menendez brothers have spent more than 6 years in this building, the Los Angeles County Jail. Eric lives in the identical cell next to this one. It measures 7.5 by 9 feet. Lyle's cell, in another wing of the jail, is slightly smaller. Both brothers are segregated from the general population. Each of the brothers, separately, is allowed up to 3 hours of exercise a week on the jail's roof. Eric and Lyle Menendez will be moved to state prison, perhaps even to separate prisons, this summer. Our interview took place in the jail's administrative wing, some distance from their cells. You may find Eric and Lyle Menendez to be cunning and manipulative, as their second jury seems to have, pronouncing them guilty of first-degree murder. Or, like many of the jurors at their first trial, you may decide that they are credible and that their story strikes a sympathetic chord. That is perhaps for you to determine. My job was to ask the questions, beginning with this one. What went through your minds when you heard that verdict? First-degree murder, guilty.
That I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison without any possibility of ever getting released. And you're devastated. I was devastated.
Could have been death. Did you think that?
I was terrified that they would give either one of us death, and it's scary.
It's important to you to stay together when you get moved to the state prison?
Very important. That is what's gotten us through these 6 years and through our life. The family that Eric and I grew up in, we had to be there for each other throughout, and it really created a bond that gets us through very rough periods.
Some people might say, why should we put them together? I mean, look what they did. They should be punished as much as possible. Let's separate them. What do you say to that? You know people will say that, some.
There's nothing to say to that. What we did, it was awful, and I wish I could go back. We will spend the rest of our life in prison, but if we're not put in the same prison, there's a good probability I will never see him again, and that some things that you cannot take, and there's some things that you can endure. With everything taken away, would be the last, it's the last thing you can take.
Do you think the media has portrayed you fairly? Can you tell?
I don't know if anyone can be portrayed fairly in the media, who they are.
Well, let me say it. There are people, a great number of people, who think that you two are spoiled brats, that you are evil, that you are monsters. What do you say to them?
That's not who I am, but I can't defend that. Because I came from a family of wealth, it doesn't make me spoiled.
I would be surprised if anybody that was present at that trial and saw the whole thing rather than snippets on the news would feel that.
A jury found you both guilty.
Right, but I don't think you aren't guilty because they found you spoiled.
Mm-hmm. Or evil.
Or evil.
I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Eric, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
Yeah, I know.
And you still say you're a normal kid?
Well, I didn't have normal experiences, but I am. I did that, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about what happened and wish that I could take that moment back or change what happened. But it's hard to live with that.
Do you feel remorse?
Tremendous remorse. And I think
there's tremendous pain. I mean, from the second that I got back to the house after the shootings, I saw what happened and I said, this is wrong. This is awful. How could this have happened? I couldn't accept it.
You couldn't accept it, but you called the police. You pretended that you hadn't done it. You cried? You went off on a spending spree? I mean, we all read about it. You bought Rolexes, you bought cars, you didn't say, oh my God, what have I done, and turn yourself in.
Well, that's not really what happened.
Well, I've sort of stuck it all together, but...
Yeah, you did a good job at it. We got back to the house, the police were there, and it was a matter of telling him you did it, or just saying, I don't know who did it, and that's what we did. And if I could go back, perhaps I'd say I did it.
And part of that started from the fact that we waited afterwards, and the police did not come. And in that time that we waited and waited, you know, we did make a bad decision to not have to.
We expected the police to be there. I mean,
you expected the police to come there and arrest you.
12 shots in the middle of Beverly Hills on a Sunday night, and no one calls the police. We're waiting at the house. No one shows up. And I still can't believe it.
So you called the police, but at that point you had already decided.
We had decided not to.
You weren't going to say anything.
We were very stunned, and we felt that we would go to jail, obviously, and it was a selfish reason to just not want to have to go through that.
What about spending the money? You know, cars, watches, invested in businesses, the good life.
Well, it was the same life before or afterwards.
With more money.
With more money, but I didn't know what to do with the money. It got to a point where I have all this money and so much pain, I don't know what to do with it, and eventually...
I don't know, you're losing me. I would think that you would be in such grief that you wouldn't be able to buy Rolexes and invest in businesses. Explain to me, let me understand. I'm the public.
I don't think that it's understandable. I mean, people react to some traumatic event like that in different ways.
You went to your psychologist, Dr. Oziel, and told him that you had committed this crime.
It got to a point where I could no longer live. I felt that I was the worst person on earth, and it got to a point where I couldn't live with myself anymore, and I needed help. And so I went to him, and that is what the catalyst was for me getting arrested in Lyle.
You've had a lot of therapy.
6 years of intense therapy.
How are you different than the man who came in here?
I'm 6 years older. I'm a lot more mature. I came in here as an 18-year-old kid who didn't know anything about life.
What did you learn about yourself?
I learned I learned what love was about. I learned what love was about because of my grandmother, because of all my relatives who didn't say, I can't believe you did this. Instead they said, Eric, I know who you are. You're not this type of person. You're not the type of person who could do this for no reason.
Have you had therapy, Lyle?
The same therapy, and it really works to just have someone you can communicate with that's willing to listen. All our lives, it was just sort of fending off things.
It almost sounds like prison was a good thing for you.
It was.
It was?
I mean, at first, I killed my parents, and I spent 6 months out there in horrible agony because I had done this. I mean, a year before, I told my mother how much I loved her. I could not have imagined doing this even a week before to her. I adored her. And then suddenly you're arrested, and everyone can know you did it, and you can finally tell people, and it's a relief.
Lyle, you're looking at your brother like you almost never heard this before. Tell me how you felt.
You know, for me, emotionally being in prison conditions was really not, emotionally was not a shocking difference from the life we had lived, because we lived really a very stressful, fearful life. And to me, it was kind of like, I felt I should be punished. And it didn't feel good, but there was a part of you that feels like,
that's right,
it's better.
You get a lot of mail?
We still get a tremendous amount of mail.
Hundreds?
We've gotten hundreds, thousands over the years.
We asked your lawyers to give us a sample of some of your letters. A great many of them seem to deal with from people who have been abused themselves and relate to you. Lyle, what do you say to people who write to you?
A lot of people that have written were very, they drew a lot of strength from watching the trial and from seeing Eric and I. And I've gotten mail after the verdict of people discouraged. And I wanted to say to them to not lose hope because of this one case and this one verdict. Very unique situation here, and that this does not mean that if they go get help, people won't believe them, or people will treat them harshly, or they'll be ridiculed. I don't feel they will be.
That's not to say do what we did. Don't do what we did, but don't be afraid of getting help.
People that want to reach out to social workers for help, but are ashamed or afraid.
Do you also get love letters?
Yeah, some.
You find that strange?
It's a strange phenomenon that a lot of love letters come in from people that don't know you at all.
Do either one of you have girlfriends? Do either one of you have someone who cares particularly about you now at this point in your life?
I do. I have someone who I love very much and is a saint to put up with everything that comes with this.
Can you tell us who she is?
Yeah, her name is Anna Erickson, and I hope that we can get married. Even though it's a very limited relationship because of where we are, the exchange of love and sharing, it keeps you in touch with yourself and softer, and you know, otherwise you can become very hard and cold in here.
Is this someone you knew before prison?
No.
This is someone who began to write to you and meet you?
She wrote me many years ago, but and I've come to know her well, but just someone that I met through the mail.
And she wants to marry you?
And she does.
Eric?
No, not at the moment.
You're not going to meet a lot in prison, Eric.
No, I probably won't. It's hard. Lyle's more able to have that type of relationship.
Eric, you know that the prosecutor brought up the fact that you might have been a homosexual and that this might have caused some of the fury on your father's part.
Yes, he did.
I didn't hear about girlfriends.
They were there.
I guess what I just have to say to you is, are you gay?
No. No, the prosecutor brought that up because I was sexually molested, and he felt in his own thinking that if I was sodomized by my father, that I must have enjoyed it, and therefore I must be gay, and the people that are gay out there must be sexually molested, or they wouldn't be. Felt, and it was upsetting to hear, but I'm not gay, but a lot of gay people write and feel connected to me.
A problem at the trial was the gender bias, that because we were dealing with males and in an incest family, that there's sort of perceptions that, well, maybe it was something that he wanted, something that he allowed to happen, that he shouldn't be allowed to feel afraid because he's a male. I really felt that people might have seen this case very differently if it were a sister that I was protecting or that was involved in this and not a brother.
You know this whole business of abuse excuse, that you were abused by your parents, sexually abused, emotionally abused by this tough, unyielding father. But there are lots of people who are abused sexually in other ways and they don't kill their parents, and you've been ridiculed for this abuse excuse. What do you say about it?
Abuse excuse is a word that Alan Dershowitz made up, not knowing anything about the case. To simplify it to its simplest degree, if a person is raped, man or woman, and she kills the man who raped her, is it an excuse that the reason she killed him is because she was raped? Of course not. I certainly never felt that what I did was justified or right. It was just a question of how wrong was it.
That was a big misperception about this case, that it was about justification or excuse. And my brother and I essentially pled guilty. That was very hard for me to hear the ridicule about that, because I really felt that Eric and I And we could have gone to trial like most people and just sort of, we weren't there, it wasn't us, and had that trial.
What do you mean we could have gone to trial? We weren't there?
Well, you could go to trial and just say that I was, chipping golf balls at the time and I wasn't there. And Eric and I went to trial and said, we did this.
There were tapes. There were tapes.
Tapes became admissible because we said we did it. Lyle and I fought because he felt that telling the world that Dad was a sexual torturer was killing Dad twice, and he did not want to kill Dad twice. And he fought, and he said, I don't want to go up there, I'm not going to take the stand, I'm not going to do it. And then when he did, there was a great outpouring, but there was also people laughing at him, and it was strange.
Eric, you were able to tell your psychologist that you had killed your parents, but you were not able to tell your psychologist that your father had abused you?
Unless you've been molested, you can't realize how hard it is to tell.
Because of shame?
Because of shame.
The story continues now, the scene being set for murder. Describe your relationship with your father. What words come into your mind?
Brutal. Painful. Torturous. And yet I thought that he was the most powerful and brilliant person I had ever met.
I was his firstborn son. That was very important to him. And my bond with him was, I thought, strong because we had been through so much together. But it was difficult to see the things that were going on. And
things that were going on, that is, when you learned that he was sexually molesting your brother?
He had sexually molested me before I was a teenager. And it was a much different experience than Eric's.
Because you were little?
Because I was little, I guess.
You know, there are some questions that everybody asks, like, why didn't you run away?
I wish that I could have. I tried to run away when I was 12, and my father found me. He caught me and said, if you ever run away, I will kill you, I will find you, and I will kill you.
Suppose you left and you, I don't know what, became a waiter and moved away. You still thought he'd find you?
He would find me and probably kill me. I thought for certain he would kill me.
You still think that?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you love your mother or like your mother?
I loved my mother and I tried to help her. My mother was a person in a lot of pain, and she was alcoholic and she was suicidal.
Did she know about the abuse, the sexual abuse?
She knew.
And didn't do anything?
She knew, and it doesn't seem that she did anything.
Do you still think about the night of the murder?
Every day.
You both do? Tell me as clearly as you can why you murdered your parents that night.
First thing that comes to mind is terror. I was so afraid. A few days before, I had said to myself, I'm never going to let my father touch me again. After I told Lyle that it had been continuing on, I said to myself, I'm never going to let him touch me again. And just before the shootings, my dad told me to get to my room and that he would be there in a minute, and he was going to come up and there was going to be sex, and it was like an explosion in my mind.
But you'd bought the guns. It wasn't something that just happened that moment. You'd thought about it.
No.
You bought the guns in advance. They just weren't in the house.
Yes, we bought the guns in advance.
So this didn't just happen that moment.
We bought the guns. There was a series of confrontations and blow-ups in the house. My dad, when it first was revealed that I had told Lyle about the secret, my dad said to Lyle, you're going to tell everyone, and I'm not going to let that happen.
Take me through your mind, Lyle.
I cannot separate and say this is why this happened. My father was threatening us, and so there was fear, but there was there was anger on my part, and my mother was aware of and had allied herself with my father, and there was a great deal of confusion. This happened all in just 3 days, and I wish I'd give anything to just turn back that one page of my life.
The other big question. You killed your father, who was molesting you. Why did you kill your mother?
On Thursday night before, in one of the explosions, I was running downstairs and I was crying. And my mother was on the couch and she had been drinking. And she said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "Nothing, nothing. You wouldn't understand." And she said, "Oh, I understand. What do you think, I'm stupid?" And she told me that she knew, that she had known all my life what my father was doing. And it was like I didn't even know who she was anymore. And I just saw Dad and Mom as the same person at that point. I saw them as a single person.
And really the first time that this secret about what was happening with Dad and Eric was discussed openly in the family in a very angry way. I don't know about Eric, but I completely lost control myself. And in that time, I didn't separate. I knew my mother and my father. It was just adrenaline and fear and anger. I
lost control.
There is no explanation.
But you had thought about this earlier because you had bought the gun several days before.
We knew that this could end, a violent confrontation could occur because my father had threatened my life.
You still think your father would have killed you for revealing the secret? You both still feel that?
There's no question.
Really?
I still believe that. I don't believe that he was in the process of killing us that moment, that evening.
Yeah.
But and I don't think that it might seem, because there are so few cases that come to the public's attention like this, that this has never occurred ever before in the country. And in fact, there are over 200 parricides a year that involve incest families. And so, I felt it completely then, and now I believe that, but I would not shoot my parents now, no matter what.
How now would you have resolved it? Now, almost 7 years later? What do you think you should have done?
I would have never told. I got Lyle into this. I went to him and I said, "Lyle, I can't live anymore with what's going on," and got him involved. He was a way to go. They had bought him a condominium. He was going to Princeton. He had all the money.
So it's your fault for telling your brother?
It's my fault. And I got him involved and said, "I need your help." And 5 days later, my parents were dead.
So it's your fault?
That's completely my fault.
He was suicidal at the time, and it was just a last thing to reach out. And obviously who was going to reach out to. And I decided to confront my father rather than just sort of not say anything and just have Eric and I leave, which if I could go back, that's what I would do. I would just say, "Eric's old enough now, he wants to leave."
Have you forgiven yourself?
I don't think it's possible.
Lyle, are you at any kind of peace?
More so than maybe Eric, because at this point, for some reason, well before the verdict, I was resigned to bad things. And I have, I think, found a place where I can look forward and try to have hope and share myself more with people. And
Hope of what?
Hope of living a life that I can be more proud of.
How in prison?
You're confined, but there must be, even just in writing, people that need help.
If you can help them and convince a single person that has been through our situation that the last thing in the world they should do is act out violently, then you find meaning in your life.
If you could say something to your mother and your father, I'm sure you have in your own minds, what would you say?
I am so sorry. I forgive them completely for anything they have done to us. If I had one wish, it would be able to have one conversation with them or to change places with them.
I hope someday that I can be with them and have some sort of conversation about what happened. It is one of the awful things is that I can't we couldn't communicate that weekend, and I can't. And just that I love them, and that I believe, despite everything that happened, that they really loved us, and that things just went awry.
Our interview is over. Deputies now arrive to take Eric and Lyle Menendez back to the cell blocks. They were handcuffed and chained for the long walk back. Their legs had been shackled throughout the interview. This had been one of their infrequent opportunities to see one another in jail. The guards would now take each of them to their separate cells and to the certainty of the rest of their lives in prison.